All year long, you may not have known it, but there have been study after study showing that loneliness is on the rise and men are being hit especially hard. Earlier this year, the Surgeon General declared loneliness an epidemic. A recent Pew poll finding 60% of men under age 30 are single, and many say they have no close friends. Joining me right now, Owen Marcus, the founder of Every Man, which is an organization that coordinates support and wellness groups to foster male friendship and healing. Thank you so much. You know, after reading up on this, one could say the masculine heart is in a silent crisis. Men do not open up as much about their emotions. They often feel trapped. They don't like necessarily being vulnerable. What is the #1 reason you believe men are lonelier than ever?
I think, as men, we've not learned how to really connect to each other. As we grow up, as we think we all know, men and women, we were told that emotions are something that you do not feel and you certainly don't express. And you particularly don't do that in front of other men. But what we're seeing, and I've been doing this for a few decades, is that men, particularly younger men, are becoming more willing to be able, in the right or emotionally safe space, to feel and express their emotions. And one of the things that happens is once a man sees one man do it, and they see that that space is safe, they will often venture into doing that themselves. And in the course of maybe an hour, every man in a little group will start to become much more emotionally aware and much more emotionally expressive.
You know, there's a large group of young men. We talked about it just at the top here. They're single, they live alone, or they remain unmarried and live at home with their parents, fueling more isolation. So what advice would you give for men in those categories who need to make friends?
I understand. When I got into this quite a few years ago, it was scary to reach out and take that risk of, say, coming to a men's group or any environment where there's more authentic connection. And the more we don't do it, the harder it is to take that leap. But one of the things that I found immediately was I was not the only one that felt afraid or intimidated about being authentic with other men. And so I would encourage men to take that risk, know that you're not alone. And I'm willing to bet that once a man or two opens up, you'll start to realize that you're a lot more like the rest of us than you really believe you are.
Yeah, it's so true. I've had the privilege and the honor of having friendships with many men who are emotionally vulnerable, and they've opened up to me about how challenging it is to actually initiate friendship. You know, with women, we might go to the gym and meet a friend, or we might go to brunch and be introduced through work, but male connection is sometimes a lot more difficult of a dance than with women. If a guy is watching and he's not ready to join a group like yours, are there places that they can go to kind of jumpstart that feeling of being connected to community?
I think almost any place. You brought up a good point. Men will often open up with women and not with other men. And so what often happens is when they lose their partner, they're really at a loss. But just doing anything, I mean, traditionally men have played sports together, and that's a step in the right direction. One of the unique things about men is we tend to connect as we do things. Women can just sit down and start talking about anything and start opening up. But as men, we tend to want to be doing something together just to have some conversation. And then what I would encourage is to sort of broach the subject from talking just about sports or your work to share something that's a little more vulnerable and take that risk. And if the other man doesn't respond, it's really not about you. It's just about his conditioning and his fear of also being vulnerable. But I find that in most cases, men will respond in a more authentic way if you take a risk and reveal something about yourself.
Well, I think you make, again, a good point. One of men's primary needs is that recreational partnership and doing something with the people that they're fostering connection with. This is important for men. This is also so important for boys who will grow up to be men. Owen Marcus, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.